Miscarriage. Nicki Minaj unspoken grief. As she Saturday in the dimly lit hospital room, clutching the ultrasound pictures of her unborn child, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of emptiness wash over her. Just hours before, she had been beaming with excitement, eager to meet the little one growing inside her. But now, the silence was deafening, and the only sound was the soft beeping of the machines surrounding her. It had started with a nagging feeling, a sense that something wasn't quite right. At first, Sarah had brushed it off as mere paranoia, but as the day wore on, the feeling only intensified. She had tried to shake it off, focusing on the upcoming baby shower and the nursery she had lovingly decorated. But deep down, she knew. She knew that something was wrong. The doctor's words had been like a punch to the gut. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. It looks like you've miscarried." The room had begun to spin, and Sarah felt like she was going to pass out. She remembered feeling like she was in a nightmare, like she was going to wake up any minute and it would all be over. The days that followed were a blur. Sarah went through the motions, attending appointments and answering questions, but she felt like she was just going through the motions. She couldn't shake the feeling of guilt, of wondering if there was something she could have done differently. She felt like she had failed, like she wasn't good enough. As the weeks turned into months, Sarah began to realize that she wasn't alone. She started attending support groups, meeting other women who had gone through similar experiences. They shared the stories, the tears, and the fears. And slowly but surely, Sarah began to heal. She realized that miscarriage wasn't something to be ashamed of, but rather something to be acknowledged. It was a loss of a life that had been growing inside her. And it was okay to grieve, to feel the pain and the sadness. Sarah's journey was far from easy, but it was one that taught her the value of resilience and the power of community. She learned to be kind to herself, to acknowledge her feelings and to allow herself to heal. And as she looked back on that fateful day, she knew that she would always carry the memory of her unborn child with her, but she also knew that she would emerge stronger, wiser, and more compassionate because of it. As the months went by, she found solace in the little things. She would often find herself walking through the park, watching as children played and laughed together. She would see the joy in their eyes, the carefree spirit that came with being young and innocent. And for a moment, she would forget. She would forget the pain, the sadness, and the grief. She would forget that she had lost a piece of herself, a piece that she would never get back. But as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the park, she would be reminded of her loss. She would see a mother holding her child, watching as they took the first steps, and she would feel a pang in her heart. She would feel the weight of her grief, the crushing sadness that threatened to consume her. It was on one of these walks that she stumbled upon a small garden. It was tucked away in a quiet corner of the park, surrounded by tall trees and vibrant flowers. In the center of the garden was a small bench, adorned with a plaque that read, "In memory of our little ones." She felt a lump form in her throat as she read the words. She felt a sense of connection to the garden, to the people who had created it. She sat down on the bench, taking a deep breath as she looked around the garden. She felt a sense of peace wash over her, a sense of calm that she hadn't felt in months. She closed her eyes, letting the warm sun shine down on her face. And for the first time since her miscarriage, she felt like she could breathe again. As she sat there, she realized that she wasn't alone. She realized that there were others out there who had gone through the same thing, who had felt the same pain and sadness. And in that moment, she felt a sense of connection to those people. She felt a sense of community, of belonging. Over the next few weeks, she found herself returning to the garden again and again. She would sit on the bench, watching as the flowers bloomed and the trees grew. She would feel the peace and calm of the garden, and she would remember that she wasn't alone. And as she sat there, she began to heal. She began to let go of the pain and the sadness, and she began to find a sense of peace and closure.